Welcome back to the Capes and Tights podcast. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg, and we're here right at capesandtights.com. This week's episode, we're back to a single episode a week for everybody out there, just so you know. This week's episode is with one of my favorite comic creators of all time, Jonathan Hedrick, the creator of The Recount, Capable. Let me get my notes here. Recount, Capable, Caffeinated Hearts, Hyper Aware, The Space Cadet, Freak Show Princess, Dream Master, and the newly released today, when this episode is dropping, Quicksand over at Scout Comics. Jonathan has been on the podcast twice before to talk about the Recount and Dream Master, but he's here to talk about Quicksand, his new series that he kickstarted and now is going to Scout Comics, dropping May 10th today at your local comic book shop. Before you listen to this episode, make sure you jump on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to follow us, as well as subscribe, rate, and view, and all those things on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all your major podcasting platforms. This is episode number 106 of the Capes and Tights podcast with Jonathan Hedrick, comic book writer. Enjoy, everybody. Welcome back to the Capes and Tights podcast, Jonathan. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me back on. I appreciate it.
You're like the first, I think you're the first 3-time guest that's not been like Paul, who's a regular, like he's not an actual guest. He's just I guess a guest co-host here and there, my LCS owner. But I think actual comic book creator, you might be the first 3-time. And I realized you were on episode like 51 and then you were on episode 66. So you had, we talked Recount and then we talked Dream Master, but this technically is episode 106.
Well, you're pumping them out.
I went the first of the year. I went to 2 a week, and technically now you're that you never were in that 2 a week because this is the first episode of going back to 1 a week because I just couldn't. This just takes too much time and effort and energy to do 2 a week. So I went back to it. So this comes out actually on the same day that a comic book we're about to talk about today, Quicksand. If it's still coming out May 10th, is it?
So I check every single day, sometimes 3-4 times a day. So I know the book is printed because I got my comps, so that's always a good sign. And I got them well in advance. Scout's already been selling the Whatnot Select version on Whatnot, so it exists. So I don't see why it shouldn't make it that May 10th deadline. So
that's good. And we'll get into that. But so like I mentioned, the 40 episodes or so since the last time we've been on. How have you been since then? What has been going on in life and everything? How's life?
Oh, not too bad. You know, I'm always rolling with the punches. Comic book wise, can't complain. You know, got a lot of stuff in motion. I was at MegaCon last month. That was fantastic. Got some new cons coming up. I'm going to be in Fan Expo Philly next month. First time going to a con in Philly. Then we got Heroes Con in North Carolina. Super excited about that because it was a blast last year. New comic books coming out and got some more in the works. Hopefully 2024, if things pan out this year, we'll have some new stuff in 2024.
That's awesome. I was just going to say MegaCon. You look like you had so much fun at MegaCon. It looks like a mega con.
It really is. They really, it's not a misnomer. It's a big 4-day event to the point where like the preview day, Thursday, that's like 2 to 10 2 to 9, 2 to 10. It feels like a full day. You know, it's not just a preview. It's actually a day. I think they should just actually make a Wednesday 5-hour night preview because of how big Thursday is. It's just so much to do. I never left like the comic book area. I never went to like the celebrity zone or anything. I was lucky to be able to go to the bathroom sometimes. It was a good show.
I do feel like we just had our Portland, Maine one here. We have 2 in Maine, basically. There's one in Portland, Maine, and one in my hometown, or my town I live in Bangor, Maine. And the Portland one just happened this past weekend. And I feel like the 3 days that I was there, I think I honestly only went to the bathroom once in the actual arena. And that was just because of, I feel like you're walking around enough, or you're talking and you're busy enough that you're just like, convince your mind that you don't need to pee. I don't know. Like it was just the weirdest thing that I was able to be like, oh my gosh, I don't think I went. I actually didn't know, but it was kind of funny. But our preview night of that too, because most conventions nowadays, if you think about it, like most middle size or small conventions are 1, maybe 2 days convention, Saturday, Sunday, or just a Saturday. And lucky enough, our convention, the main comic and toy con, is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the same thing. Friday night's kind of like the preview night.
Yeah.
Celebrities sometimes are at their tables, sometimes they're
Right.
not, because they're going around shopping at all the vendors and things
Of
that are like
course.
going there. But it was cranking. It was the first one in that city in about 10 years, because they've been
Oh
doing them up
wow.
here, and it was cranking. It was really cool. But yeah, seeing the amount of people coming out to see those
Yeah.
things. Same thing with me, though. I hung out in Artist Alley most of the time. Uh,
Yeah.
every once in a while, forced myself to go somewhere else, but I was just hanging
Right.
out with some
Right.
local artists
Hmm.
and creators. And we realized
Yeah.
one thing that's funny: all the creators that were there, or most, like the majority of the creators, have generic names for first names. So there was
Really?
like Bob, Joe, Ryan,
Okay.
Steve. And I was just thinking to myself, no one had a unique, cool name. It was like, I guess their parents were like, yeah, we're going to give you a generic name.
Yeah.
You have to do something with your life, something creative.
Well, in like 20 years, the creators are going to
Yes.
have those oddball, millennial names, stuff like that. But out of those bland first name creators, how many of those had like pronounceable last names?
Well, see,
Because I
that's the thing, is
feel,
a couple of them don't. Like our
yeah,
buddy and friend of the podcast, Joseph Schmalke, who has had
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
published.
Oh,
Right?
yeah. I love Jeff.
Schmalke is a
Yeah,
little, like, you know how to say it, you know how to say it. But if you don't, I
yeah,
can see you screwing that up. And then
yeah.
our Bob Takic, it's Tacik,
Yeah.
and that's another. But Ryan Wing, Steve
Yep,
Mardo, like they're
sure.
not like super hard. Paul Pelletier was in the house,
Okay.
Marvel artist and stuff. Like Joe
Yeah,
St.
yeah.
Pierre,
Mm,
Marvel artist, was there. George Deep, who's done things for Marvel and things like that, as well as
yeah.
Steve
Sounds like a good
Levine.
lineup. Yeah.
Steve Levine was there too. TMNT legend Steve Levine.
Heck
But
yeah.
they focused. This is the first one they've done
Hmm.
in this town, like I said, in this area. So they focused a lot on like Northeast New England based creators instead of
Yeah,
bringing
that's good.
anybody in, just getting that
Yeah.
hometown feel. And so it's obviously cheaper too, because most of them went home and spent the night at home.
Yeah, yeah. You're guaranteed more creators that way when they don't have to shell out the hotel money. Yeah,
Yeah, so it
for
was really
sure.
nice to see that. But yeah, it was well attended. It was pretty cool. But yeah, it's always nice to see. I haven't been to one in over 6 months, so it was nice to be back in the flow of things and being at conventions, and MegaCon just looked like fun. One of these days I'll have to get to MegaCon, for
I
sure. We
hope
were
you
also at
can.
Portland Fan Expo as well. You went to Portland Fan Expo?
Yeah, Portland, Oregon Fan Expo.
Mm.
That was February or March. So yeah, we had a good time in Portland. Yeah, I love that city. It's nice to break away from the Florida heat. I'll take that opportunity whenever I can get. And that was actually a small show in comparison to MegaCon, even though they're both owned by Fan Expo. But we still had a good time. Got to see some of my friends, got to meet new friends. So it's good to go out to the West Coast sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always in the cards, but I like to when I get the opportunity. And Emerald City turned us down this year, so we're like, well, how else are we going to get to Northwest? So,
Yes.
and when Fan Expo Portland, gave us the call, we're like, oh yeah, definitely that's a good substitute.
I feel like it's funny nowadays that there's so many talented creators out there that conventions can turn people down.
I
Because I
know
think like
it.
I feel like years ago it was like, who can we get to come? And now
Yeah,
it's like we have such good and talented writers and creators out there and artists that they have like too many, that they have to say,
yeah.
okay, you're a talented creator, but I still don't have room for you.
Right. I mean, I guess it's a good problem to have, as long as the cons keep it faithful and not too many of them have like exhibitors selling lawnmowers and vacuum
Mm.
cleaners, like I saw at C2E2. Uh, you know, not to call any
Yes. No, yeah,
cons
I know.
out.
I was asked if I wanted to buy new windows for my house at the convention this
Yeah,
weekend, so
it's like, come
it
on,
happens.
you know. Uh,
Well, that's the same thing
but
we talked about. My buddy Paul, who owns the comic book shop, we were thankful enough that you came on for our book club
oh
and did
yeah,
a
that
little
was great.
Zoom.
Yeah.
But we were mentioning together too. It's like it's a difference also, like you being there, or save an artist for an example. Joseph Schmalk is a
Mhm.
great example. So he has
Yeah.
something, and someone 6 rows down is taking his art from the internet and putting it onto a little Tumblr and using
Hmm.
that as a thing. It's like, which one is the actual artist and which one, like which one should belong there and which one doesn't belong there, in a sense
Correct.
that nothing wrong with that, whatever, if that's what you do, da, 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 da. But I'm saying to myself, if that person's taking a spot up that you could have been there, for example, then that's
Right.
not fun. So that's a thing. And I did think they
Yeah.
had actually one person who they had to say not to come back next year. I don't know the person's name
Ooh.
or whatever, but it was, I think they were not tracing people's artwork, but taking like famous Marvel poses on covers and like
Yeah.
definitely mimicking that, but not to the point where
Right.
you're like, I'm gonna make it look like it's, you know, Wu-Tang Clan. It's
Right. Right.
literally taking like Groot and Rocket or whatever and
Mm.
making them in a slightly different style your own. And they felt like,
Yeah.
okay, it was Sunday when they found out that this person was doing this, and they basically
Mm.
said, I think they're gonna say you just can't come back next year unless you have some original artwork. That's not fair to the original
Yeah.
artist on that sense.
Uh,
But
At least there's people scoping that stuff out to make
yeah,
sure it's not, gonna continue to happen, because that's a slippery slope. There needs to be some type of regulation for those kind of things, because that's taking money. Yeah, we don't got to get into that whole controversy, but yeah, it has no
well,
place
Jay,
in
one
the
of the
industry.
owners, is a tattoo artist. He's actually my tattoo artist, and he's
Oh.
always like, "But I tattoo on that and call it my art." He's like, we were like, "That's completely different. That is
Yeah, that's a whole other
completely different."
medium.
It's not.
That's a
Yes,
permanent thing. There's a whole other form of style with that too.
and he tags the
But
people who created it, saying, "Here's their artwork. This is my ink
yeah,
version of it." He's not trying to pass it off as his
right,
own artwork, and that's the difference in that. But we don't have to get into that for sure.
exactly,
Um,
yeah,
But so we're here to talk about Quicksand. So Quicksand, I read it again. I read the luckily enough to read 3 issues, and
yeah,
which is kind of fun because I'm kind of like usually when I have these advanced look at things, it's
mm,
usually just one issue, and you're like, oh my god, this is so good, I want to read the next thing, and I have to
yeah,
wait even longer than if it was. I just read it
right,
off the newsstand because
mm,
it was off the newsstand. It'd be a month later, so.
yeah,
But it's lucky to read that and to get a little bit more of an idea of what's going on. But it's coming out on Scout May 10th
that's right.
for in your local comic book shops and at
Mm,
scout.com and all that stuff. But originally was a Kickstarter. So
that's right.
how did Quick Sand come about?
So yeah, a couple years ago, I was wrapping things up with Recount. Wanted to do another mini series. Just kind of dive into a different genre before I got jumped right back into volume 2 of the Recount, which I'm sure everyone's upset that I just didn't do that in the first place. But I had the idea of Quicksand rolling around my head for a while, and put pen to paper and approached Deborah Lanchinese, who's the artist on this series. She's a fantastic artist. She also drew Hyperaware, my
Okay.
other book that came out with Source Point last year. Um, and Yeah, she did such a great job with it, and she was so invested in the story, and was able to put out like the pages quickly. That was, oh man, we need to do another one after this. And 2 and 3 happened right away while we were crowdfunding issue 1. And issue 1, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is the highest dollar amount campaign I've run so far, was for Quicksand 1.
I think so
So
too. I was looking that up too.
yeah,
I was trying to figure out you have your Kickstarter link on your page.
right.
I don't have to like call you out whether or not you're right or
No, no,
not, but
it's
I was
okay.
looking it up.
Yeah, please fact check me, because I need it. I need
It
every book.
was you had 187 backers on the single issue of Quicksand, which
Mm,
was about $4,000, and I think
mm.
you had more on. Yeah, Quicksand 1 through 3, yes, had 6,500. It was 212
Ah, okay.
backers, but
Yeah,
still, I mean, it's more
yeah,
comic books. There's more issues in the second one, so if you took it by a single issue, like
right.
the Quicksand one had a pretty good fun crowdfunding.
It grew the right way. And
Mhm.
uh during the campaign for the second campaign for Quicksand, I got a little like elbow nudge from someone that's connected to Scout, and they're like, "How come you haven't sent this to Scout yet?" I'm like, "Oh, I honestly was just gonna do my crowdfunding thing, and then once everything's wrapped up with the miniseries, then shop it around." And the same person was like, "I think you need to send it to Scout." I was like, all right, let's see if they're just you know full of it or not. So
Yeah.
sent it to Scout. They're like, what were you waiting for? They really wanted the IP. I mean, I still have own the IP and everything,
Yeah.
but they wanted to do that with it. And yeah, so I figured, why not? It beats having to do another crowdfunding campaign, which I still could have done. It just I don't know. I had other things to crowdfund
Mhm.
too. So, and I don't. want to I don't like crowdfunding like constantly. You know, I
Yeah.
like the break in between campaigns because it's exhausting. But
It's,
yeah,
it-
that's
it's
Quicksand. I don't know. It's proud parent of that series. I hope people pick it up. It's something different from what the other books that I've done, and yeah, it leans more towards like the my horror side, which I really dig. I like to dive deep into those areas.
yeah, and it's not the recount because nothing you'll ever write will be the recount, in my opinion. You know
Right,
that.
right.
But it's in the same vein in the sense that it's that one thing that it's like real life with one deviation.
Yes,
You know what I mean? Like it's like based in the real
yes.
world, but it's one deviation from
Right.
that to make it sci-fi horror, and it has
Mhm.
that human interest and human story to it that Recount has that's a little bit different than something like Dream Master, for
Right.
example,
Yeah.
right now. But yeah, it's one of those cool things. But Kyle Stark was on a couple episodes ago, and he was
Mm.
mentioning that a lot of times he just wants to have like the main reason to write comic books, obviously, is you have to pay your bills too, but like it's so people read it. So like
Yeah.
Kickstarter, if you continue to Kickstarter, you still only have that 212, 300
Hmm.
backers that are continuously going to kickstart,
Right.
and you know, maybe some people will drop off because they've quick kickstarting everything else. But if you can get it in the hands of Scout and Scout can put it in LCSs, that means that more people are going to get in the hands of themselves. It's not the yes, obviously more copies you sell, the more money you're going to make, but like
Mm.
more people will read your stuff, and that's a good thing.
Exactly.
Like you know, getting it out there at Scout.
Yeah, getting a larger audience and having someone pay to print it. You know, I'm still gonna have to be the one that's doing 100% marketing. You know, that's not gonna go away. Uh, and that's clear. I think anyone can see that these publishers, especially the smaller to small medium ones, are lacking in that area to some degree or the other. So it's not like that burden got taken away from me, but the upfront cost of
Mm-hmm.
not having to print the book in those numbers is alone worth splitting royalties 50-50
Mm-hmm.
with a publisher just to get it yeah in more LCSs uh, digitally across more platforms and the potential of it being shopped also to
Yeah.
up in other areas too. So fingers crossed that it's well received and that it's all worth going that route.
Does something like the Recount and success that Recount have help you in LCSs and getting people to order it, like the shop owners to order it? Like, oh, this
Yeah.
worked well for that. Should we order more copies because the name is attached to it, or does that not really matter to a lot of people right now?
Yes and no. It can vary from one shop to the next, and one reader to the next. One shop can be like, yeah, we our clientele really didn't doesn't like the political stuff,
Yeah.
and so they're not familiar with you, or it's not anything like Caffeinated Hearts or
Yeah.
Dream Master. So we're gonna take our chances like we would with any other number one small press indie book. But then there's the ones that were like, yep, ever since Recount came out, everyone just said, uh, anything Jonathan Hedrick does, we'll subscribe to it.
Mhm.
So I like those LCSs a lot.
Exactly, right.
But
Well, I also think that, I mean, Scout isn't massive, but also Scout, I feel like it's become one of those ones that has had, and I don't want to put Scout down, but there's titles that are really good and titles that are not so good. But like
right,
just like every publisher, honestly, this is not just a Scout
yeah,
thing. But Scout is one of those more accessible, small to medium sized one. Whereas like
correct.
I will say that I don't think my local comic book shop had ordered Black Box before
Right.
Dream Master and things like that. So like there's certain things that like I think they order occasionally Source Point, but it has to be
Yeah.
someone that's like, I mean, when Cullen Bunn has a book over there right now,
Right,
that I
right,
think the
right.
name exactly, okay, Cullen Bunn, I don't care where it's
Mm,
from, we got to bring that in kind of thing. Well, I guess you
exactly.
could have your entire comic book shop with Cullen Bunn books right now. I think it's like 700 on the market. But the idea of Scout is accessible, I think, more to people too, because of
Right.
titles that have come out before. And in my local comic book shop, because of Schmalky,
Yeah.
in that sense, that's the reason why they ordered a bunch. I will say, because of Schmalky, also is another reason why they may not be ordering as much, is because he's no longer there anymore. But that's a different story for another day.
Right.
But
Mhm.
they see the thing, like, I see Scout is more one of those ones that's on their radar, which is nice
Yeah.
for you in choosing or going with Scout for this book.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they, for lack of better words, they cast a wide net
Mhm.
with their with the titles that they choose to publish, and
Yes.
that helps with so many things like uh, the the previous catalog is going to
Mhm.
have a page and a half or two of scout books where a black box one title at a time they might get 1/8 of a page, so it's going to be they don't have a number one coming out every single week, they don't have a number one coming out every single month,
Mhm.
so it's harder that way. um, but like going back to what I said, you can't stop marketing.
Mhm.
None of that burden was taken off my plate. So,
Well, you could have gone with IDW right now, and they fired their
yeah,
entire marketing department. So I don't know. You would have still had to market your own
right,
books.
right. And to some point, I think no matter where I'm at it with a publisher, no matter fingers crossed, big two or any of the mid to large indie places, I'm gonna still market my books that I wrote the same way I'm doing right now.
Yeah, there's
I
no reason
can't
not to.
exactly. I can't leave it to chance. I can't. There's so many missed opportunities out there. You don't send a press release on time, and you just wasted a month and a half on pre-orders that you can't ever get back, and things like that. So I have to be the loudest one in the room when it
Mhm.
comes to my books.
And not that these creators you're with too, it's not like they're selling the book for you in the sense that they're great
Right.
creators and they're great artists, but it's not like they're out there. It's not like you partnered with someone who's also this like all-star team on Marvel
Right.
books and all these other things too. I mean, like I said, not
Yeah.
to put them down because they're really good. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying
Sure.
you have to carry your own self too, and they have to carry their own self stuff too. You're not cross-selling with each other in that point. Like no one's selling the book for you. You have to do it for yourself.
Exactly. I'm lucky if my colorist will retweet,
Mhm.
something I tag them in. It's just that I can't expect them to. Their page rate didn't include marketing the book,
Mhm.
So, and to be fair, they got paid. They're not getting anything else afterwards.
Yeah.
You would think that some people would see the benefit of more exposure to get more work. Oh, look at this awesome coloring I did, this awesome lettering I did. I'm going to circulate this around more and potentially get more work. But to each their own. I'm not going to, rake them over, coals for anything like that.
No, I don't know if it was you and I had this conversation before or not, or someone else, but the fact that there's actually creators out there who don't even have social media, which is fascinating to me. It's like, well, how the heck are you going to
Yeah.
tell people about your book? Or the people who wanted to leave Twitter when Twitter was
Right.
like a dumpster fire, which it still kind of is, but like when it was a
It,
real dumpster fire, people
right.
were like
Right.
trying to like, I can't be on Twitter. And someone was like, well, I understand that, but how are you going to tell people about your books? Like, how are you going to
Yeah.
tell people that you're making something? We used to deal with this. I worked at a company in Massachusetts that, they were like asking us every year, do you want to advertise in the phone book, and finally
Mm.
we're like, are we getting anything out of this advertisement?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we talked about it in a meeting, we're like,
Mm.
if we don't,
Mm.
is someone going to think we're closed? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like if
Right.
we're
Right. Right.
the ones
Right.
who don't, no one notices that you're there, but they notices when you're not there. And so it's the same thing.
Exactly.
If you're not promoting a book, they might not notice that you're promoting a book, but they may notice when you're not promoting a book. And so
Right.
that could be like, well, Jonathan Hedrick got really quiet all of a sudden.
Yeah.
What's going on with that?
100%. Even I did recently take 2 weeks
Yes,
off
you
of
did.
social media, and it was I that was strategic. That was like, all right, during these 2 weeks, I don't have. I could always find something to promote,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't anything as urgent. And uh, and I came back, and people were like, yeah, we could tell that you were gone. You know, uh, so or a few people. Um, so that goes to show like what you're saying. If you're not out there just every once in a while taking a posting a picture of what your food or your cat or something, you gotta stay relevant. It's part of the world we
Mm-hmm.
live in right now. So
It's self promotion is one of those things, and it's a class that some people just don't know. And obviously, there's a borderline, but you're also it's like me. I try not as much to share a lot of it on my Twitter. I retweet like this episode. I'll retweet on my Twitter and so on and so forth because I don't really care about cross promoting between both the podcast and my personal life. But on my Facebook page, it's like there's key ones. Like there's one episodes where I'm like, I'm really proud about this episode or a milestone episode or whatever, because those people can choose to follow me or not. But with Jonathan Hedrick, you are your brand, like you are your business. So like it'd be stupid for you to create a Facebook page that's a business and you as Jonathan. That would just be dumb. So you do have to self promote. So some people might notice when you're missing on that sense because of the fact that you're not promoting it. And you were past FOC right for this book. So you're like, it was like you were in the point where now you're just now you're back in the idea of promoting it, because if someone didn't pre-order it, you still want to sell the copies that the shops ordered.
Exactly. Let them know to look for it in the shop. And with Scout, you can still call them up and be like, hey, we missed the diamond order. Can we buy it straight from you? And they'll be more than happy to send that straight to a store. A lot of stores go straight through Scout instead of the other Diamond, Lunar, or whatever. They've already have their arrangement, so that it's still possibility to hit up a store a week before it goes on sale, and they order 50 copies or something because they missed it because of it got lost in the sauce back in March. Who knows? So
and one of those things I always like to tell people too is this episode will actually drop on the day. So if you're getting in your car in the morning and you're turning on your podcast, and hopefully your first thing you do on Wednesday morning is going to turn this thing on, and you're like, oh, Quicksand. And you go to your local comic book shop, and either they sold out already or they didn't order it. In all likelihood, to tell them that you want it, because they still can reorder it. There's a lot of times there's some still left in the warehouse or at Scout Direct, and if you want it, they still can get it. Don't think that I missed it, it's on the shelf, it's gone, whatever. If you ask them, they can order a single comic book for you. This is not like where they have to order 10. Like they can call up and be like, I need another call up. What year is this? Who's calling? Who's calling to order comic books?
They can send a fax.
Listen, a carrier pigeon. The milkman and the telegraph, whatever, will come to your door. No, they can still get it, and that's one of those things that which is pretty cool nowadays. And, obviously some books that sell out, they sell out, but there's usually a second printing and so on and so forth. So just at least tell your LCS you want it, because you can get it. And also, honestly, if you also miss it, you're gonna have copies. Scout.com is gonna have copies, so check those out too. But we're talking about Quicksand here, and I didn't even tell people about the actual book. I always get into the details before we actually get into it. So I have a synopsis here from Previews World, but what would you tell people? I like to hear from the creator. What is your elevator pitch for Quicksand?
I always like to first start off with saying that it's a cross between James Cameron's Aliens meets Danny Boyle's Sunshine. So, and a lot of people aren't familiar with Sunshine. That's a deep cut sci-fi movie. But and then if they haven't run away after I said all that, I say it's this whole mysterious hole opens up near the pyramids of Egypt. These monsters come crawling out. They attack a nearby city, and before you know it, they've already crawled back into the hole. And people around the world were like, "What was that? We can't let that happen again." So the leaders from all the different countries around the world formed this team, send them down into the hole to research what happened, but the team disappears. So now we're focused on in this story about the second team. Are they going to go down there? What are they going to find? And things get crazy. So I like calling it a grounded sci-fi story. When we hear sci-fi, we think of Star Wars, Star Trek, in outer space, but this is science fiction on Earth. Instead of looking up to the sky for aliens, something mysterious below us is coming out, for the first time. And the overall theme I want people to feel when they're reading this is, what if we're not safe on Earth? We know if we go out in outer space, it's like swimming in the ocean. You asked for it. There's going to be weird creatures. There's going to be sharks out in outer space. All kinds of things out there we don't know about. But what if we don't feel safe at home anymore? And that's what I'm trying to dive into with Quicksand.
Would you? I mean, I was trying to think of trying to explain it to someone else too. Is like the monsters are large, but they're not like kaiju style size
no,
large. They're
no.
like medium size. They're
Mm.
creatures that are creepy and can kill you and so on. And
Yeah.
another thing is that I don't know why I was afraid of scaring people off from a book. I don't know why when I explain a book to someone, like they're not going to want to read it. So I had this like
Mm.
defensive mechanism, but like it's not as much about the monsters too as it is, or the
Right.
creatures as it is the people
Mm.
that went down and the people that are there now. And so there's
Yeah.
that aspect of it too, which is like you're really focused. Like that's the reason why these people
Mm.
have to do these things, but it's not the sole thing. It's not like when you read Walking Dead, it's always zombies. It's about the
Right.
people in a zombie apocalypse, and this is about the people in this
Exactly.
thing. There is the creatures and things like that, but it's like
Of course.
you learn a lot about the people that are actually in the actual book.
Yeah. Yeah. With that being said, our main character, Stephanie Noon, her husband was the team leader
Mm-hmm.
of that first team, which was called Canary One. Um, and so she's trying to figure out where her husband went. That's her sole purpose. And then, she gets the call like, all right, you want to find out? You go down there
Mm-hmm.
and get them. And imagine telling someone that, yeah, you can go down, follow those people down that hole that never came back. Have fun with it. What are you gonna find out? Tell us when you
Mm-hmm.
get back. So I like that mystery of it. And the whole like you don't know what you're going to get into. Yeah, there's going to be monsters, but it could be a lot worse down there. Yeah, I liked playing with those type of themes. It's not just like aliens,
Yeah.
and big guns, and that's fun. But there's got to be something in between that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
It,
lots of human reaction.
and that's this. And it was captured really well too by the lettering from Christian. How do you say Christian's last name?
Dokolomansky.
Okay, so
Do-
I can see that.
Dokolomansky.
It's
Yeah.
said spelled the way that you'd say it. So I don't know why I wouldn't say it that way. But yeah, Christian's lettering is amazing in that too, which adds that
Thank you.
whole and you've worked with Christian a few
Yep.
times, right?
On Recount and Freak Show Night.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
but so obviously went back to your go to person there,
Yeah.
and so that it captures that aspect of like I said, the motion and the wording and the reactionary parts of it too pretty well,
Yeah.
and right off the bat too, and Sunil, is that Sunil? No,
Sunil Gauger. Yep.
yeah.
The colorist.
I literally went to like Jonathan Hedrick, and then I'm like, I'm gonna have to ask him about every other person that's on this book's name.
No, it's fair. It's fair. And who knows, maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong.
But they're not gonna listen to correct
No,
you.
exactly. Yeah.
Kidding, just kidding. But yeah, so it's a 3 issue series, or is it going to be more?
Five. Five
Five. So
total. I'm still
3 issues is what
waiting.
you made through Kickstarter. So the other 2 issues are
We're gonna be
new,
straight through Scout. Yep. Yeah.
but they're
So no
new.
one
Okay.
no one has seen issues 4 and 5.
Okay.
So I do have issue 0 that's exclusive just to my website. It's a
Mm-hmm.
eight issue black and white preview at ash can that I did. Only 100 copies made. That's exclusive to my website. Won't be coming out through Scout either. I didn't crowdfund it. Didn't it's not going through any publisher. It's just that. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe it'll be added to the trade. We'll see how things go over the next year. But yeah, 5 issue miniseries. I'm still waiting for my creator proofs for issue 4 and 5, which should be coming soon. But the book series is completely done. All 5 issues are in the can. Scout has them. Just waiting for my turn at approving them.
So obviously you had 3 done, and then you had 4 and 5 that you had to do after the
Mm,
Kickstarter. But
right.
what's different about something like this, where you have pretty much the 3 issues done
Mm,
going into Scout? Like you basically got a head
yeah.
start in that sense. Like what's different between like something like this and something like Recount, where you went from the beginning?
Right. It definitely helped sell it too. When you tell them you have 3 issues on 5 in the can, and I think we already had a lot of progress done on 4 and 5 as well. Um, but we did have to it did have to go through the lens of another editor. So there is dialogue that's different from the Kickstarter versions and the Scout versions. Some slight artwork changes here and there. All the covers have to be completely different. Can't reuse any covers that were done in the Kickstarter campaigns. So yeah, that's the biggest difference. It was nice to have like a head start for
Mhm.
sure. And then you get to play around and breathe a little bit instead of
Mhm.
like hitting deadlines, hitting deadlines, hitting deadlines.
Now it's on them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now it's on
It's
them to hit
like,
their deadline.
come on, where's my creator proof?
The it's funny how you mentioned that too. So I had mentioned conversation with Joseph Schmalke. He's like the weirdly come up a lot in this episode is this weekend because he was there. Is he had his 7 Years in Darkness new series that he has coming out at CEX that he
Right.
had basically like I have issue 3 because I'm a Patreon member and issue 3 is not even like issue 1 just came out last week
Right.
from CEX. So I have the his. It's weird. Like online, it's like the Joseph Schmalke exclusive because it's like
Right.
a
Right.
free CEX thing. So I'm sure that was a positive thing to them when they signed on for that book
Oh,
too.
for
It's like,
sure.
okay, he's already got all this in the can. We can easily make this happen. Where if someone's like, I've got this idea, I've still got to do
Yeah.
it, is a little bit less intriguing to some publishers out there.
It's a much harder pitch without art. And I'm telling you, I've been uh, at the end of 2020 is when I started getting invites to pitch to other publishers that don't take creator owned stuff. Well, you're some of them you have a slice of it, but they want to build the creative team. So they go to a writer and they say, "Tell us what you got. If we like it, we'll find an artist. We pay for all of it. You get a cut as creator and blah blah blah." That's a real hard process, to get someone on board with a, page and a half pitch, um, uh, and hope that they get it.
Mm-hmm.
Quicksand actually was my that very first pitch to the publisher that won't be named. Um, and I was so invested in it. I was like, I I can't sit on this. There's this story I want to tell it, so I already had that pitch, and I was like, I'm just gonna make this comic book myself. I
Yes.
already had experience with other books I had crowdfunded before, and just got off the recount. There's some of that team was available, so it was not um, that publisher not picking that pitch was a blessing in disguise. And since then, I've probably sent out 10 other pitches across multiple publishers that are, pages only of words, no artwork. And I'm still waiting for someone. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm still putting out books, but it's the ones that I've funded or myself or like with Dream Master with
Yep.
Black Box where they're like we'll pay you to write
Right. Here.
our idea. you know
It's funny because last it's weird because we're recording this a little out of order. So Daniel Jose Older was on, who is a author and comic book writer for Star Wars, and he's part of the High
mm,
Republic team. And he was saying that he had a book that his book that came out recently or last year, Ballad and Dagger. It's a book, a
mm,
young adult novel that came out last year around this time. Was turned down by like 40 different publishers. Okay, like
not
40
surprised.
different things he got turned down. He ended up picking one person, picked it up, and it became a New York Times bestselling book.
Yeah,
And so it's like one of those things that sometimes having people say no, it's hard, and you've dealt with this.
yeah,
Got to put it on your shoulders and just keep going.
yeah,
And knowing that one person might pick it up and might become the comic book of the year, and
yeah.
you might win Ringos and Eisners and things like that for it.
Mm.
So yes, it's one of those things that sometimes it is seeing positives in the negative, and having that publisher not pick it up and have it end up kickstarted and then at Scout might be one of the best things that could happen to this book.
Yeah, for sure. Or maybe it could have got picked up in that publisher could have, crapped the bed
Mm-hmm.
with the marketing or something, and then it would have fell on deaf ears and went straight to the dollar bin. And it's like that was such
Yep.
a cool thing, but now no one's gonna read it because no one knew about it. So
And that's the thing is
yeah,
we talk about Kyle Stark's thing about the whole you want people to read it. You put
right.
time. I don't know how people do the whole pitching TV shows and
Oh yeah.
creating ideas and having them say like buy
Mm,
the idea and then them never making it and no one ever
right,
knows you ever had this thing even started to know
right.
like how you could live your life with like how cool it was to have your show picked up or like
Mm,
bought and then never had anybody ever say anything
yeah.
about anybody. I'm like I can't imagine that.
All the ideas and all the could have beens that have
Yeah.
like have been just floating above our heads all this time, and who knows how many like awesome like Batman movies could have been
Hmm.
made. We've heard about like the Justice League Mortal, that thing that
Hmm.
almost got made, but yeah, maybe sometimes it's probably better off that it doesn't. Who
Yeah,
knows?
I mean, and that's the thing. It's one of those things that you still know that you have a property that's been, picked up with the recount,
Right.
and it's a possibility 2 or 3 years go by, and they're like, "Yep, okay, we thought about it, we did it, and we're gonna move on." But people have
Yeah.
read the story, so it's like one
Mhm.
of those things that like your idea and your comic book is out there, and second
Right.
term is coming, and so there's
Mhm.
at least that aspect of it when someone buys a property that's already something, a novel, a comic book, or something, and
Right.
want to make it into something else. I just can't imagine pitching ideas to someone and someone buying the idea and
Yeah.
then them saying, "Well, we'll sit on it for a while," and then never doing anything
Yeah.
with it. And you're like, "Crap, that was one of my
Right.
favorite ones, and I can't do
Yeah.
anything with it now."
And it's just all those years wasted of
Yeah,
of it sitting there and not no one doing anything. Yeah, it that's got to be frustrating.
and that's one of the benefits you have with kickstarting this. Like you said,
For
it's one of
sure.
those things that you at least got it out there. Whether or not anybody ever picked it up again, and you
Yeah.
just kickstarted it, at least your story got out
Mm.
there, people could read it. But luckily enough,
Yeah.
this comic book was picked up by Scout. Like I said, it's great. It has that like I said, that alien aspect in it. I've said something like because the
Right.
creatures kind of remind me a little bit of
Mm.
stormtroopers, super. I can't
Starship Troopers.
Starship Troopers. We had this
Right.
exact same fumble the other day at something else too. In that aspect of it too, of the creatures and the hole in the earth and
Mm.
unknowingness of it, I think the artwork fits really well. Artwork and color fits really well with your writing style and Christian's
Thank
lettering.
you.
And
Mm.
so the book is a great book in general, and it's one hard to say that it's still not going to be your number one book in my opinion because you know that people know that listen to this podcast they're probably like shut up
Right,
about the
right.
recount, which I was actually very happy about when you came on and talked to our book club and talked about it, and we had
Yeah.
rumblings. There was a grumblings around that someone was like, we weren't really big fans of it. I thought I heard like multiple people say this. I was wrong. There was like one person who didn't
Uh,
like it out of the whole thing, and again, it was more of the political landscape part of it that they didn't like, and
of
so it was
course,
like one
yeah.
of those things that I was like laughing. I'm like, why did I felt like people were just gonna shit all over the book. And I was gonna sit there and be like, why?
uh,
But no, people liked it. So we haven't talked about it actually much since then. We talked a little bit afterwards, but yeah, people were very happy with reading that
I'm
book.
glad to hear
So
that.
Quicksand comes out May 10th, which is the
10th.
same day as this episode, and then I'm guessing basically monthly after that until it's all out,
Well,
or is it?
Scout has this uh the term that they just use to describe it, like a launch window initiative, I think they call it. And they've been doing that for a while now, with where there's a gap between issues 1 and 2, like a 2 or 3 month gap, where they allow the LCS to analyze how well issue 1 did prior to
Okay,
ordering issue 2. Um, so issue 2 hasn't been
they
isn't
previewed
in
yet? No.
previews yet. I think it will be in the June previews for issue 2, because I have on my secret dry erase board August. um, August being the on sale date for Quicksand 2, and then they'll follow suit with 3 September for
Yeah, that
October
makes
and so
sense. Yeah.
forth. So
It,
hopefully maybe a trade at the beginning of 2024, not
and
sooner.
that's a good thing. It's actually it's weird because obviously in the world of comic books that we live in anyway, that waiting month to month is excruciating for some of us because
Yes.
we want to read the next issue. But in the same sense, I was thinking about the LCSs on that. My buddy Paul, who owns the shop, very frustrated sometimes where like they have to FOC the second issue of a book
Yeah.
before even the
That
first issue sells,
I
so they
can't
don't know whether or not they
imagine.
can sell it.
Right. And that's why so many of them drop off. That's why there's so many number ones. That's why Marvel has 27 volumes of Captain America and
Yes.
Deadpool. I don't blame them for it. Just keep that legacy number right there in the letterbox. But
I think they should start making the legacy number the bigger number and the other
it, that would be great. But
the
when they
smaller.
want to see that one really big.
I remember
Recount was
that they did it with a Marvel, one of the Nova comic books that I have. It's like Marvel Now #1, even though it was issue
yes,
13. I was like, what
right.
are you
Yeah, we'll
doing?
slide that one in there. But yeah, Recount was one of the first books that Scout did the whole launch window initiative. I think that's what they called it, and it worked out. It was kind of bittersweet that how it worked out, because of how well Recount did issue 1, we were able to put out a second print of issue 1 before um, issue 2 dropped. So that served a good purpose. People weren't able to get issue 1. All right, we'll do a new cover, second print, and it dropped like a couple weeks before issue 2.
Mm-hmm.
The bitter part of it was January 6th happened in between that
Yes.
time, and that do we know if that affected sales at all or whatever? I don't know, but just because of the
Yeah. What's gonna
atmosphere,
happen? Like
yeah,
between now and August, is a hole gonna open up in the middle of the
oh
desert and creatures start
yeah,
coming out? Is that gonna ruin
uh,
sales in number 2?
yeah, they're probably gonna put me in a room if that happens and have
You're
me
not allowed to
start.
do anything.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to do anything anymore.
Stop
Just
writing stories.
my
No Nostradamus,
precog books.
Nostradamus over here.
Right.
Um, so yeah, so May 10th is that Scout. So talk to your LCS even now because they still can get it. Like I said, today's the day that technically it comes out. We're recording this a little bit in advance, so it sounds weird to say that, but today, when you hear this, it will
Yeah.
be the day that it comes out. It's Quicksand Day, which is actually kind of funny because I think our review of Quicksand comes out the day before this comes out. We're gonna drop it on that day, which is kind
Oh,
of funny because I thought we're just finishing up Star Wars week. It'll be Jonathan Hedrick week. So I feel like I need to do something
yes.
that week about the Recount and Dream Master
Why not?
and Space Cadet and everything. We'll just make it Jonathan
Oh,
Hedrick week.
that would be great. And it, May 10th is May 10th is also the day before the last day people can submit their Ringo Award nominations.
See, look at that.
So if
There you
anyone's
go.
listening to this and you haven't done it yet, and if you are so inclined, my 2022 books, Recount Preamble, Space Cadet, Caffeinated Hearts, and Hyperware. It's your last chance to give those your nomination for best single issue, and Space Cadet for best kids comic would be.
Mm-hmm.
I would be so happy just to get a nomination. That's
That's
all.
exactly right.
That I don't have to win. I just want the nomination.
Mhm.
Just that, please. But fingers crossed.
Yes.
I know it's a lot of pie in the sky, and there's a lot of great comic book creators out there. A lot of great comics. Yeah, it's hard to single out just 5 for each of those categories.
Exactly. But yeah, it's worth putting a name in there. And if anybody has that
Right.
opportunity, it's just ringoawards.com. Because I think
Yeah,
that's what it is. Yeah.
ringoawards.com.
Yeah.
Mm,
And then I'm sure if you just go to your social media,
yeah.
there's
I
probably a link on there. Weird.
Yep, I really plugged it hard this year. I've done so just because the diversity of those 4
Mm-hmm.
comics that came out in 2022, and then being one shots. I think this wasn't just me like saying, "Hey, the recount was great,
Yep.
nominate it." I was, these are 4 different comics, different genres, different stories, for different audiences. So I think someone could find something that they like between them.
Mm-hmm. And this is this is Quicksand. The last book you had out on Scout was the recount, right?
Recount preamble before
Preamble,
this.
but yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
so like so I'm saying this like you have a book, so you have a spread out a little bit there too, which is kind of nice.
yeah.
Having that idea that you can have books at different publishers, so your catalogs are all at one spot, as well as
Right.
the different people will promote it in that sense too, which is pretty
Exactly.
cool too. So
Yeah,
it's
able to
nice.
stay in Diamond, more often, be have something, to
Yeah,
promote.
and then also like I said, you're working on recount second term, which this
Yeah.
might help promote and springboard into that too, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Is there any other updates on that at all, or are you still
Uh,
plugging away? Or
I'm still plugging away. I'm getting pages back.
okay.
I'm hoping soon to have uh, between the pages I have. I'm just not sure if any of those are the ones that I want to be the first, like, news from Recount second term. So
Mhm.
I'm waiting to get a few more back. I and right now it would just be pencils and inks to show the new artists and everything like that. But there hopefully is something later on this month in May that is Recount late related, that is going to crowdfunding. So something people will see soon, for Recount. Hopefully by my target date is May 16th, that this thing will happen on crowdfunding. That's very Recount related. So,
Yeah. My birthday's May 15th, so you missed it by a day. So
oh
thank you for
man,
the birthday. Thank you for the birthday present, though.
a belated birthday present, right?
No, it's one of those things. I was so excited to read it again for the book
The
club,
book
which is
club,
funny because
yeah.
I have so much to read. And I even thought about to myself the other day,
I
there's
bet.
things that publishers are sending me like, okay, here's
Mm,
this graphic novel to read or whatever. And I have to start picking and choosing what I'm going to read and whatnot. And it's one of those things where like I wanted to read that. And then I wanted to read Nail Biter by Joshua
right.
Williamson. I
Yeah.
absolutely love that book.
Mm.
And so we did Recount, we did House of M, which is this past month. And now we're doing Nail Biter. And I was just laughing to myself. I'm like, see, I have to read it for book club.
Yeah.
So forcing myself to read a book that I really want to read, but I just don't have time to read again.
You're
But now I
right.
have to read it because of
That,
this. So
that's a good way to keep you accountable. You
yes.
know.
And the other ones we wanted, there's a couple of books, I don't remember what they were, but my buddy Paul and I were like, we're gonna put that in there because we want to read it so bad. We just haven't been able to get the hook to read
Yeah.
it. And if you force ourselves to read it for book club, not that they're bad or good books, it's just trying to
Right.
get grasped onto it. If we force ourselves to read it, then we have to read it for book club, then we'll
Yeah.
get to the whole volume or the whole, excuse me, trade on
That's a good
that. So
plan.
yes. So yeah, it was pretty fun to read that for you. Maybe we'll end up doing a Quicksand in the future or something. There's just so many books.
That'd be great. Yeah, I know. There's so many books. I was super flattered that the book club chose
Mm-hmm.
to do recount. That was super cool. I love doing that Zoom beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot of fun. So yeah, I'd be
We'll have to do
honored if you
something.
do it again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll do something in the future. But
cool.
yeah, so there's that, and then you have like you said, we mentioned earlier, you're going to be at Free Comic Book Day actually at Dark Side Comics in Sarasota,
Yep,
right? I read
yep.
that on your website.
Yeah, with my wife, Francesca Fantini, the artist at stake, and Andrea Moody. People know him very
Mm-hmm.
well from Bunny Mask and
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, Maniac of New York.
Yes, yes,
Sorry.
yes.
Yeah, that's gonna be a great time. We've been to that shop before over in Sarasota. Had a blast. They asked us to come back for Free Comic Book Day, and we jumped all over the opportunity. So
It was funny. I was talking to a person today over the weekend about Free Comic Book Day, and Paul Eaton, the owner of the shop in my area, was trying to
mm,
get someone to come up to sign. And most of our artists, the big artists from our area, are from Portland, which is 2 hours away. So it's like one of those
yeah.
things. And I look in Double Midnight Comics, which is in Manchester, New Hampshire, which is close to couple hours from Portland, same distance, has like
Mm.
every New England artist coming. They're doing like a mini 1 day convention on May 6th.
Uh,
And so I was like, that's the reason why we can't get anybody to come up here is because they're
yeah,
all there.
yeah.
But it's cool. I thought they made a whole thing. They moved into a new spot that has like a function hall across the hall. And so they're
Hmm.
just gonna put up basically tables like a convention and do signings and things like that. But I think it's free. I think you can just
Yeah,
go to it, which is kind of cool, which is
yeah. Like a
always
little
good.
mini con. Yeah.
It's always good to have no entrance fee because that means they might spend more money with you. And
Yes.
that's
That, and sometimes it works in theory like that. Sometimes it doesn't. I've been to those let's pack 20 creators
yeah.
into one LCS before. I'm like, cool, I got 1 foot of space,
Yes.
put one comic book in front of me, and everyone's trying to take it because it's called Free Comic Book Day.
Yes, they think it's free. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's also difficult. But yeah, and the same thing with my buddy Paul's shop. It's an old apartment basically, so it's very tiny. So always only one
Uh,
can creator can go in there for sure.
yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty funny. And then you got Fan Expo, obviously mentioned Heroes Con, which is gonna be fun. And then you're also way ahead in the future. It looks like you're gonna be at Lake County
Yep.
comic
November.
convention in November, which is pretty
Yeah,
cool.
something might pop in between those dates. There's a lot of bigger
Yes.
shows we're waiting to hear back from. Of course, award season could shake things up too. Fingers crossed that
Mhm.
that goes our way. But yeah, hoping that to fill up the gap between June and November a little bit more, but not too much. Don't want to get too crazy with it, and hopefully maybe make a trip to Maine.
Yes, that's it. We
That
have that on there. So if you don't end up going, it's the problem we're having right now with the one in the October is the
uh,
same exact weekend as New York.
that's right.
And
That's
so
what
one
it
of those
was.
things,
Yeah.
it was always one of those things where I'm like, if people get rejected from New York or don't want to go to New York,
Right.
then I wish there was like a pool of lists. Okay, these people are going, these people are not going. These are the people we need to focus on, not these people because they're
Right.
going. And Schmalke was one of those. He's just waiting to hear back from his thing, but they won't hear back until June. So we
I
won't run
know.
it, which is fine. It's enough
Yeah.
time in advance for us to know for October. But yeah, it's kind of funny how that works in that sense. But and then you're Quicksand coming out May 10th, and then
Yep.
it always sucks though this thing because you're not gonna have. Are you gonna have Quicksand? I, mean, I guess you have your own versions of Quicksand for Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah. With for Free Comic Book Day, I probably won't bring Quicksand with me. I'll probably bring some Kickstarter
Yeah.
left overflow. but I don't want to compete with the comic
Yeah.
book shop and have their clientele not purchase it the next week. But yeah, I got the that zero issue. I might bring a few
Yeah.
of those. Dream Master is also
Yep.
wrapping up this month, so might bring some slabs, some variant covers. Still pushing caffeinated hearts on people and hyper aware, because I love those books so much, and Space Cadet, and going to be telling people about Capable,
Hmm.
which comes out the end of May from Advent Comics. Another was kickstarted, now picked up by a publisher, comic book. So
That's awesome. So that's a ton of
yeah.
stuff up there. And it's the slabs you have. You have a 9.8 caffeinated hearts that was on sale. I saw
Yep.
out
Yeah.
there too. And then yeah, so I was lucky enough to get mine back from there. I
Nice.
did get it in case that recount 9.8 there,
That's
which is actually
gorgeous.
kind of fun. I didn't realize that the 9.8 George Perez came back, and I didn't realize I put it right above it. At the
That's
top. So you're right.
beautiful
You're
though.
right. You're in good
Yeah, it's good
company
company.
there, right?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
actually, right here, it's hard to see the reflection on it right now. I just put it up. That's
Mm.
a label, beer label that myself and my buddy Jay Cochran put
Okay.
together for the convention this past weekend. It's featuring Art the Clown from
Yeah.
Terrifier because he was
Oh,
there. David Howard Thornton was
sweet.
there, so he signed it, and I put it up there. But I'm just realizing now my lights in the studio are
Ah,
blocking the. It's
well,
also a
it's still a
black
work in
label, so it's hard.
progress. You said you just moved everything
Yeah, I
around,
move
so
everything around, so I gotta get it all there.
yeah.
And it doesn't stay in that spot because my son, who's 2, can reach all the
Ah.
stuff, and he likes to pull things. He likes to move things around, so it ends up moving around anyway. Luckily, the
Gotcha.
slabs are just far enough away for him not to get them.
For now, till he starts growing.
And they'll be all just like you'll see in the show next, and everything's just way up here.
Yeah.
And then it's just Jonathan Hedrick Comics.com.
JonathanHedrickComics.com. Yep, you can find my web store there. I try to keep my signings updated there.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a great hub for links to everything else. You can find,
Yes.
links to Scouts web store, Black Box web store, all my social media stuff. So I'm not trying to, take anything away from them. You can just like a hub, as I like
Mm-hmm.
to call it.
And then there's our social media is all on there too, but it's basically Jonathan Hedrick without any vowels.
Exactly.
Is the
Yeah,
social media.
someone already stole it with all the vowels, so they must have paid more for it.
And they're probably getting tagged in things. They're probably like,
Yeah,
I should probably just give it to him by now.
just sell it to me, $40.
Well, here's the deal: if you have something good to say, no vowels. If you're shitting on it, put the vowels in there.
Right,
Send it
right,
to
right,
that guy. You don't want to hear it.
right,
Yeah, it's the same thing with us. We have like there's a guy who owns at Capes and Tights on Instagram, who it's a
right.
private account that has like 10 followers, and
Uh,
it's one of those things. I wish there was a way to submit and petition to be like,
yeah,
is it possible Instagram for you to deactivate this account after this person has been on it in 4 or 5 years?
right.
Is it possible for you to tell me about it? But there's no way. They basically own the account until they
I,
purge it.
I'm I'm sure a matter of time with the way social media is going and
Yeah.
the nickel and diming everything that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You want to keep your username, you have to pay us $5 a month,
Yeah.
or something like that.
Until it's if you're actively using it, it's free. But if you haven't
Yeah,
used it in over 3 years or whatever, we're gonna pull it back. And like what they
right.
do with numbers, like after a while, phone numbers are like
Yep.
reused and recycled and all these things. So
Or
like,
your
maybe
license
one of those,
plate.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Surrender
but
your
yeah,
license plate every 10 years and buy another one. Like, what's up with that? It was perfectly fine before.
I
I
had a
sound so crotchety. I'm really aging myself. I'm really
aging
living in
yourself. It's because you live
that.
in Florida. You get all the
It
retirement
is,
people
yeah.
around you.
Yep, yep.
But
They infect us all.
it's always been great talking to you, Jonathan, and keep up the great work. So, guys, all of your stuff is basically available right now. Like, there's nothing that's not
Yep,
in print or anything like that. You can get a trade of the
yep.
recount, the preamble. You have preambles on your website?
I believe so. Yeah, at
Okay,
least some variant covers. I'm not sure.
okay,
If not the main cover, I'm pretty sure I have the main cover and some variants available.
okay. I believe
Yeah.
so. I just want to make sure, yeah, and get that in Space Cadet. All those things are available. They're readily available, which is nice. Every once in a while, I
Yeah.
talk to people who are like, "Well, that's not in print anymore." I'm like, "Well, that's not my problem. That's you talk
Right,
to someone about that, please."
right.
And yeah, so with Recount second term coming, it's great opportunity now to buy the trade and get
Yes,
up on it. So when that comes out, you have that in your repertoire as well as the preamble. Which is one of
absolutely.
those ones, which actually would be a great if they ever did a second thing. And we talked about it at the book club was adding the preamble into a trade in the future because it's one of those things. It's like they're going to stop printing the single issues at some point, and then
Well, you're on the nose with something that's happening
Okay.
later
Okay.
on this month. So
We were
yeah.
just laughing, and then Paul was like, I should have contacted Scout to see if there was any preambles. I could have sold those. He always loves when
uh
there's something else to sell
yeah,
after the group. For example,
of course.
we're reading Nailbiter right now for next month.
Mm,
He's like, I could sell someone on Nailbiter Volume 2 easily.
right,
Someone will buy 2 and then they'll buy 3 and so on and so forth. And
for
so if he
sure.
had something to sell, then you could have preamble in there. But it's too late now. No, it's not too late now. People can buy it.
Well,
Uh,
and there's something happening later this month, and it's gonna have an awesome cover for it. That I'm really thrilled that I got that cover artist on one of the probably biggest like comic books that are out there right now in the indie world did a cover for this project, and yes,
that's
it's gonna be
awesome.
awesome. Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really appreciate it again, Jonathan. We'll be
Thanks,
back. We know
Justin.
that.
Yeah,
We know you'll be back at some point. We won't wait
for
40
sure.
episodes this time. We'll do it a little less than that.
Cool.
We'll
And
do
I can't wait to see how you have things arranged.
exactly right. See what's behind me. Hopefully, there's more other stuff. Maybe there's like I don't know, more Dream Master stuff.
Yeah,
Like
maybe.
I also have that Recount Ashcans up there too. The Recount Ashcan. There's too many.
Oh
There's Recount
wow.
over there. There's the #2 foil variant over there signed by you. It's
Oh
there's too
hell
much.
yeah.
There's too much, Jonathan. There's too
No,
much
there's
fan.
not
There's too
enough.
much fanboy. Well, what's funny is that before we leave really quickly, Scotty Young was on for episode 101, and I'm
Oh
a
wow.
humongous Scotty Young fan,
Yeah,
and so it was
yeah.
like curbing my fandom slash also being a professional, but also like
Sure.
was starting to put things behind me that were like I was like, okay, but put this here, put this here. I'm like, oh my god, the whole wall is just gonna look like it's freaking Scotty Young for this one. I gotta
Yeah,
stop.
yeah,
Like there's bins of Scotty Young comic books down there. I'm like, I can't put them all up, but it's just gonna look weird. He's gonna be like,
yeah.
oh, you're one of those creepy people.
He probably would have been like dialing 911 off camera or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's a stalker. I have a stalker here.
Right.
But yeah, but Jonathan Hedrick comics.com and follow him on Facebook, Instagram, all those things, and get all the stuff. And buy Quicksand #1 today at your local
Yes.
comic book shop. Don't miss out, people. It's really good. And check
Please
out our
do.
review on capesandtights.com as well. So thanks a lot, Jonathan.
Thank you, Justin.